Perfect.
And
Okay.
we'll email you the file.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's so good to see you. I'm really excited that we were able to do this.
Likewise, it's very good to see you. I mean, we're meeting virtually after how many years? It has been, should have been 2.5 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it's been 2.5 years. And we did that training, and I remember being at the restaurant and everybody talking about, you know, what's going to happen, what's the plan going to look like. And now you're making it all happen.
We're very excited that the plan is materializing. I mean, of course, the plan changed in the process. It's like all the strategy books, right? And in your case, strategy is delivery. So we've been delivering services for 2 years, especially during this very challenging time of the pandemic.
So let's pause. Let's first just remind everybody, Kyriakis, who you are. So tell us like who you are, your role, and it's maybe a few bars about like how you got to this place.
So I'm the Minister of State and Digital Governance in Greece. I've been in this post since mid-2019 after our last national election. Prior to that, I served as the Director of Research of the Aneosis, a non-partisan think tank in Greece focusing on overall on the economic and social reconstruction of the country. I have to say now, many years back, I was a student at the Kennedy School, an MPP, and at MIT, the Technology and Policy Program. Minister of State in the Greek institutional context means something different from what it typically does. It means minister at the Prime Minister's office. And this effectively showcases that this is a project eventually of the Prime Minister himself, of Kyriakos Mitsotakis.
Interesting. And so, talk to me a little bit about what are the things that you did in the first kind of year to kind of get going? Like, so what have you changed? What have you set up? How are you approaching the kind of the digital transformation challenge?
So first of all, we had to create a new organization, this ministry, and in a sense, looking at from a while back, all over the world, as we were studying projects of digital transformation, we saw that governments more or less digitized each ministry, but they didn't digitize services from the citizens' perspective. So we figured that we needed a new organization which would combine basic functions of the state, interoperability, cloud services, service design and business process reengineering, telecommunications, space policy. So basically we gathered everything in a hub which we created on the first day of this new government. And this was very important because we understood that we needed to do it on day one. We then passed a series of laws which gave us power to interoperate all databases of the Greek state in order to diminish red tape and excess bureaucracy. So in a sense, our KPI was set, I would say, on the basis of a report. This is an OECD report, even before the economic crisis of Greece. It's an old report, 2006, if I'm not mistaken, which calculated that administrative burdens cost 6.8% of the Greek GDP. It was the highest of all member states of the OECD. So we figured that digital, in a sense, is the answer. Service design, actually, which doesn't translate that well in Greek, is the answer to this problem. So we put down a series of projects, the life events of citizens and corporations to begin with. We started mapping the steps that each one of those things entailed. Birth of a child in Greece. The bureaucratic process involved 5 steps. You had to visit 5 different public services up until a year ago. In the passing of a loved one, the steps are more than 10. When you sell and buy a house, the steps are more than 20. So we started doing this mapping. And we figured that the key tenet, the key reform that we wanted to do was a government portal, a place where we would first gather all the pre-existing services of the state, while eliminating the ones that we found to be in excess, and start building on top of this. So I think it was quite interesting. We said on day one that this would be our key project, but it was quite interesting that we launched gov.gr with 501 services originally on day one, the ones that the Greek state already had, and we found out that they worked quite well, but citizens actually didn't know of them because each ministry was digitizing something. We started during the first lockdown, actually on the very first weekend of the first lockdown in March 2020. Gov.gr now has 1,158 services, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm saying if I'm not mistaken because we add a service perhaps each day, if you compare the exact dates. And we view it as one of the key reforms. Of course, in order to deliver this, we had to do a series of other things. We had to pass a digital transformation code, which is, let's say, our key legal intervention, which passed with 275 votes out of 300 from the Greek parliament last September, quite rare for Greek political standards. 4 political parties, the governmental party and 3 parties of the opposition supported this piece of legislation, both on telecom and digital services. We developed a strategy which we call the Digital Transformation Bible, which actually is not only a strategy, this is the innovation. It has strategic elements, but it also codifies and outlines more than 440 projects for the coming years, small or large, either big projects that need to be procured or smaller projects like the ones that we have already delivered, but which service design-wise have a significant impact, and citizens are actually adopting them. And on a final note to your question, we have numbers to back that this has been quite a success. The most important of which I think is the one where we have mapped electronic transactions, i.e. Either the number of times that you log in the state systems or the number of times that the systems themselves interoperate with the citizen's consent, but without having an extra service. So if you added those 2 numbers, in 2018, we had 8.8 million digital transactions. In 2020, the number was 94 million. So this is a times 11 leap, exponential, in 2 years. And this is why the whole project is being viewed both domestically and throughout the EU. The Vice President of the Commission, Margrethe Vestager, was in Athens last week and said that this project is quite a success. It's viewed as a lead project, and we're quite proud that we're making this happen.
So what's interesting for me is this starts off as like, let's bring all the services on the website. Let's do some user research and some discovery to find out kind of what are all the barriers. So this is kind of initially what we, if you remember from when we spoke, when I came, like come in high, right? We're going to come and fix the top. And then are you working your way now deeper in? Like, are you starting now to think about what are the shared components you might build? So what comes next, or what have you tackled next?
Well, actually, we began with a very simple rule, the Pareto rule. 20% of the services can be 80% of the traffic. So in this regard, we knew what were the most frequently used services physically, because we have been lucky enough to have a physical layer of services, which in Greek we call KEP, the Citizen Service Center. They never materialized their mission 100% because we still have other state guichets, other state organizations that still ask for citizens to go there, like the tax service or social security services. But those citizen service centers managed to gather around 1,000, let's say, core documents. So what did we try to do first? We tried to start from the most frequently used ones. So service 502 was the power of attorney, which is the most frequently used service in the Greek public sector. Service 504 was an e-prescription system, which was actually based upon a pre-existing prescription system that we had digitally. Doctors had to digitally write down when they were prescribing something. But guess what? Citizens never found out. Patients never found out. So what did we do? You could enroll in a system and receive an SMS or an email with the specific prescription, which you could then show to a pharmacy store. Now, this proved to be extremely instrumental, especially during COVID, because wherever you had pre-existing relationships between the doctor and the patient, this could work from home to a certain extent. So we started building up those layers of services, of course, also taking into account that certain things are more easy to do than others, also vis-a-vis the number of other state organizations that are being involved in this equation. This means that we're still, on certain services, we're still quite high in terms of your description. Within the next 2 or 3 months, for instance, we would like to conclude the digitization of renewing your driver's license, for instance, which needed a layer of digital photographs. It needed a layer of whenever you renew doctors, an ophthalmologist has to sign off that you're okay to drive a car. So everything, we're turning everything digital, and we're trying to simplify and diminish the number of documents or the number of steps required on certain occasions. For instance, in the Greek courts, there were 25, we found 25 documents, for instance, which could more or less be merged into one document, which we did. So this is not purely digital. This is a physical simplification, but we feel, since we sort of describe this ministry as a ministry of service design, we feel that we need to do both things. Now, very quickly, the best example of what we try to do, and this has proven to be also, I think, the core success in terms of how citizens perceive this domestically, is the vaccination program. We felt that the vaccination platform for COVID could be viewed as a burning platform, as a case study of what we overall want to do with the Greek state. So if we made this work and made it work well, this could be the maximum signal of what digital services could do for you, even if you have digital skills or not. So very quickly, there we developed a 4-layer, let's say a 4-path mechanism to book your appointment. You could either go to the platform, which is the obvious example, emvolio.gov.gr. Emvolio stands for vaccine in Greek. But we had a second digital platform. We instrumentalized the e-prescription program, and those who were enrolled, we already knew their zip code. We already knew their mobile phone. So we said that if you're enrolled in the vaccination platform, you don't need to do anything. We will come to you and propose the appointment. All you need to do is say yes or no, and your appointment will be booked, either on the basis of age, which we had from our systems, or even on the basis of specific conditions, which we also had, because we had the prescription system, which has ICD-10s for each medication prescribed. And we had 2 physical layers. You could book your appointment if you didn't have digital skills in a pharmacy store. We have 11,000 pharmacy stores in Greece. They have an SME structure. Or in a citizen service center, we have around 1,000 of those. It was a very wise decision, I think, not to use a call center, because we understood that, especially as we were starting from the eldest, they would have a predisposition to call the call center, and on day 1, day 2, day 3, this wouldn't work. It would have been extremely difficult to reach an operator. So this case study overall has acted as a signal of an overall change that we're trying to achieve. So yes, to answer the question in a long manner, we're trying to do exactly as you said, but we're a bit asymmetrical, because on certain key life events, we're still high, and we're trying to change, let's say, the legal aspects and the process aspects of those life events of citizens and corporations prior to the digitization. I'm afraid I can't hear you.
Sorry, I had some background noise of a truck going by. One question I have is, where did you have to bring in talent? Are you leveraging the talents already? Like, that's often a challenge many organizations feel. So just curious, how have you navigated that?
It's a challenge. I mean, if I were to say the 2 key challenges that we have faced, in my view, are talent and procurement processes. But if I were to address the first one, obviously we're trying to leverage the pre-existing talent that we have in all these organizations. So we have actually created a quite flat hierarchy, which is not exactly the way politics works in Europe. We're trying to work around every project that we have in this ministry in a startup mentality. In those old organizations which we brought together in this new ministry, because if you look at the previous, let's say, map of the Greek government, the Ministry of Education had a digital organization. The Ministry of Health had a digital organization. So we brought all those organizations together under one roof. The Cadastre is one of them, or the Social Security digital organization, or the one that the Ministry of Finance had. And we have tried to locate talent in these organizations, people who know how to write code, or people who know very well the legal aspects of those technologies, or the GDPR, which is a necessity in Europe. And we have created interdisciplinary teams which work on a per-project basis. Now, having maximized this capacity, given the level of the challenge, especially during COVID, because we had to ensure that the state would continue to work, as businesses had to ensure business continuity. We have been outsourcing to the maximum extent that we can. Obviously, because, for instance, in the vaccines, we have leveraged the people that we have in our public organizations here, and we have brought them on the ground together with a couple of companies, a couple of IT companies that are developing code. So those teams are hybrid, and they work quite well because we have people have established relationships between them.
So tell me, one of the things that's going to come up during the convening is, kind of what have you learned from the groups that came before you, when you look internationally, but then also, like, what are the things that you saw where you say, like, we saw that and we definitely didn't want to do that, or we took a lesson of like that, we want to take a different tack. So I'd love to know, like, what are the things that you learned that you want to replicate? What are the things that you learned where you're like, we need to do it differently?
I have to say that we spent a year prior to the election of 2019 studying, and we had the chance to discuss between ourselves in Athens this extensively. We studied a lot, I would say two things, good case studies or bad case studies of other digital services, things done well or things done not quite well, because this helped us, run quicker, it helped our learning curve. And on the other hand, we also had to study, let's say, do a SWOT analysis of what we had before us within the Greek state. The core lessons, I think, were two. The first one is that for this project to be a leapfrogging event, we understood that at the end of the day, because governments are quite good at vertical policy, but not that good at horizontal policy, and service design and digital is the classical horizontal policy case, the project can work well if it's the project of the head of state or head of government, owned by the head of state or the head of government effectively. So it needs to have the clout of the head of state or head of government. So that's why we designated the position of the minister to be a minister of state in our case. And this has worked quite well vis-a-vis, resolution of different points of view, speed, etc. The second lesson that we learned was that we needed to centralize certain capacities. Interoperability, the capability of this ministry to interoperate projects, I think was the core decision that we took on day one, because up until July 2019, the key reason why it was extremely difficult to take those decisions was the fact that every principal of every public organization involved in a live event had to sign it off, also legally, not only technologically. And this took a long, long time. At the end of the day, reforms are like transplants. You need to have donor-receiver compatibility. So when we were studying what Estonia did, for instance, which is one of the best case studies, we understood that for us, Estonia is more like a compass rather than a map. It showcases the north, where we would like to reach, but it's not a good case study of how we would go there because it had its own institutional path, right, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. We felt, for instance, that gov.uk, through the Government Digital Service, 2011, was a very good case study for the Greek case. From Estonia, we got the idea of the ID cards and the way, after all, the European Union has sort of adopted this approach together with a wallet of identity approach overall. But we also got good ideas from everywhere, and we're extremely open to exchange views and sort of discuss case studies. We feel that even though we started quite low, we had to leapfrog. We were not one of the most digitally advanced states. On a couple of fronts, the vaccination platform is one of them. We have managed to actually showcase very good case studies which could be discussed on a broader scale, at a broader scale. Our policy on 5G is another such case study in the telecom sector.
So maybe to close us out, I'd love to, you have this audience of, you'll be in the audience as well, but you have this audience of, kind of digital transformation experts around the world who are all working in government. What are the 2 or 3 things you'd want to tell them?
I think that overall, the convening is a brilliant mechanism to exchange policies, approaches, and ideas. So the first thing that, in my view, we should be discussing is sort of share one success, which in our view is transferable, something that all of us can copy, and one failure that everybody needs to avoid through a mechanism which is also emulatable, and it shouldn't be. So I guess that if we are to be practical, it took us around a year from 2018 to 2019 to develop this policy, recruit the team, develop the law, be ready in day one. This learning curve of a year is a luxury that most states don't have. We had it because we were in opposition and we could develop the platform. but technology is accelerating. And after COVID, those speeds have accelerated further. So we need to develop mechanisms to exchange policies, platforms, ideas, even code directly in order to be practical. So if I were to make a suggestion, I think that would be it.
This is amazing. We have lots to say on all of those things, and I'm sure many of the participants will as well. I'm just so grateful that you're able to carve out time. I know how busy you are. I'm grateful that you can come to our convening, but I'm grateful that you could carve out time to just do this interview. As you know, we'll be posting this, so if you're watching this, feel free to send a thank you to Kyriakos for joining us, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much as well. I'm delighted to participate.
Can you press the record button now, and we'll turn the recording off?